Hi everyone, welcome in. So happy to see you guys here. I'm just gonna wait a few more minutes in case other people want to join in. Hi Deanna, nice to see you. Hi Chelsea, hi Jasmine, hi Ariella. Hey Annette, nice to see you in here. Mario, welcome, welcome. Cool.
Cool.
Well, everyone, thank you for joining. Oh, Jasmine. Jasmine said something. No, she didn't. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining in. We might have some other people rolling in. But welcome to the Client Club's masterclass hosted by Lucy, aka Lucrative Life with Lucy. I'm so honored and grateful to have her here. I've known her for how many years? I don't know how many years. Definitely over 5 years, somewhere around 8 years, something like that. We go way back to whenever I first moved to LA and I met her through the dance scene. And we were even in a dance group together. We were running the dance crew together. And then life took us in different directions, but we're still connected. I'm so excited for her because she launched her personal brand and she told me about doing this literally like 5 years ago. And I remember her saying, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna contact you when I'm ready." And I was like, "Wait, what do you mean?" Like, because I didn't know what I was doing yet at the time either. And here we are, 5 years later, and I have this beautiful community to bring her into. And I carefully select who I bring into this community and to share these kind of things because I'm all about coming from a genuine place of giving from a kind heart. And Lucy is that. I remember at one point in life, I told her I wanted her to be my mentor, even though we were like good friends. And she's like, oh, well. But anyways, I'm just sharing that to say that she is an amazing person inside and out, and she has a lot of wisdom and knowledge when it comes to finance. So yeah, I'll let Lucy take it from here.
Thank you so much, and what a lovely introduction. I'm honored to be here. I'm so happy that all of you are here and just putting the time to learn about personal finance. There are some familiar people on this call, but a lot of you I do not know. So lovely to meet you. By way of background, I'm a personal finance educator and coach. I have been working in corporate finance for 20 years. And I recently pivoted it to personal finance. But personal finance is my passion and has been my passion since I was, if you would believe me, 5 years old. Um, I am a first generation immigrant, a daughter to a single mother of three. And when I moved to the United States, um, I just saw such disparity between people who have and people who don't have. And for some reason, I've just always been really good with numbers. And I started helping my mom to budget from a very young age because, she came from a different country, wasn't educated here, and the system here isn't set up to benefit everybody. And it's also something that is not taught to us in school. So it's my mission now to bridge the gap because most of us are not taught it in high school. And I always do the joke of like, I'm sure you've seen the meme during tax season where it says, I'm so happy we learned about parallelograms instead of doing my taxes, right? And though geometry is also very important, there are just some basic skills that really will allow us to succeed in life. Because sure, money does not buy happiness, but money buys freedom. And that was something I learned from a very young age. Money buys you sovereignty and it buys you options. So I really am excited that you all are here. The goal for today is I don't know where all of you are on your financial literacy journey, but we're going to take a step in that direction. You don't have to know anything. And if you do know something, I hope that you take a lot away from this space today. My approach is also very different because of my background. I explored not just the tangible 3D financial management in terms of budgeting, investing, debt optimization. I also like to explore the intersection of that with spirituality and psychology because we grow up in different family situations, different environments, and we start to learn a lot of narratives and stories about money. And then it's not something that's then formally taught to us. So sometimes when we then learn it, we then can't action a lot of the items because there's a storyline behind it. So today the goal is to start to take a look at what some of our narratives are um, and start to reflect on our relationship to money, and then we'll go into budgeting. So and because money is tied to safety and security, like sometimes it can be a little activating. So just, I want to make sure you guys are all comfortable in your spaces. So if you're not comfortable, get really comfortable right now. Grab a notebook or a journal and a pen or pencil, because we're going to start with some reflecting. And also just, I want to take a moment and, thank you all for being here, but also thank yourselves for being here as well, because like I said, because this is something that can be activating, it takes a lot of courage to take steps in this direction. So while I allow you a moment to grab your journals or notebooks, I'm going to share my screen. And by the way, I would love for today to be very collaborative. So if anyone has any questions, while I screen share, it's sometimes challenging for me to see the chat. Britt, would you be able every once in a while to maybe jump in if there's something, if there's a question in the chat?
Yeah, I'll just
Okay.
what pops up in the chat.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, sounds good. Is everybody ready to begin? I'll pop into the agenda for today. Okay, so as I mentioned, we'll start with some, assessing where we are individually and reflecting in terms of our relationship to money and budgeting. We're all going to have different starting points. I would love if anyone wants to share, but it is absolutely not a requirement. One of the benefits of sharing is that because money is something that we historically don't talk about and we're taught is an impolite thing to speak of, we don't realize how much actually a lot of us have similar feelings. And then it helps remove a lot of guilt and shame around it. So if you feel inclined and called, I would love to hear some shares at the end of the reflection section, but if not, that's totally fine as well. So after we go through some journal prompts, I would like to review some terminology and mindset. Then we can go through some specific considerations for entrepreneurs. Then we'll go through what I call budget buckets, which are some best practices or a starting point for how you allocate your income towards different categories. Then we will go through a template, which you guys will walk away with. So I'm sure Britt will send a link to it that you guys can just download a copy and use for yourselves. And then we'll go through some additional resources and then just wrap up with some final thoughts and any questions that you all have. Does anyone have any questions at this time?
I have a
Okay.
question. Is this the same
Yes.
template that you gave before, or did you change it?
It is the same template. I will be making that one enhancement to it, which would it be able, if you share this one, then when I create that one, you can also share, or is
Yeah,
that
that
going
works.
to be?
That
Okay,
works.
lovely, lovely. Okay, great. Okay, if everyone has their paper ready. Okay, and I'll probably allow, just in the interest of time, maybe like 90 seconds for each one, but feel free to write them down because a lot of them you may want to think about a little bit more after the call. So our very first question is, what thoughts, feelings, or sensations come up for you when you hear the word money?
If anyone wants to share, if they're finished, feel free to type in the chat and I can read it out loud.
Thanks, Britt. And then moving on to question two, what thoughts or feelings come up for you when you hear the word budgeting? Moving on to our next question. Do you have any feelings of shame or guilt around how you spend your money? For our next question, have you tried budgeting in the past? How do you feel you did when you previously created a budget? What would you like to do differently this time? And then lastly, what are your financial goals? For example, getting out of debt, having less stress about your finances, investing more for retirement. There's so many more than that, but those are just a few. How would you like budgeting to help you achieve these goals? I'm going to pull up the chat and just take a look and see. Thank you guys for dropping things into the chat. I really appreciate it. And looking at it, and looking at the responses of anyone else on this call, you'll see there's so much else to money that isn't just money. So much emotion wrapped into it. So by looking at your responses, anytime where you feel that there's something negative or a contraction, that's something worth examining and looking to see why that is, where you learned that from, and asking yourself if it's actually true. The thing is, like, money is actually just energy. We put in energy to make money, and then we use it to buy things that other people use their energy to create. It's just a flow of energy. And when we kind of look at money from a more neutral perspective and look at what it can do for us, it's it's much easier. But there's a lot of work to do there because, again, this stuff starts at a very young age. It starts in our family, our communities, our culture, religion, all of the different areas where we are in life. Um, Money is all intertwined with it. So just give yourself grace in this. And the goal of budgeting is to create a plan so that there is no guilt or shame about it. A lot of the guilt or shame comes from the guilt, shame, and anxiety comes from just not having a plan related to it. The positive stuff, keep. If anything, money is neutral, if not great. I think it's amazing because it's the currency of life and it allows you to experience life more fully. I haven't had money, I have had money, and life is much easier when you have it and you know how to effectively manage it. So I'm really excited that you guys are all here, and I'm going to keep looking through this list. Thank you all. Great. Yes. Lovely. Lovely. Okay.
Okay.
Restriction. We're going to talk about that one. Sorry, Britt, you were
I was gonna
saying?
see if you wanted me to read it, but I think you read it. Is that right?
Yes, yes, yes. I'm reading it. I just want to make sure other people um tracking. Yep, yep. So tracking is just keeping an understanding of what your expenses were. Budgeting creates a plan for it. So in budgeting, it's actually creating the plan and tracking. So we'll go through that. Let me see if there's any other questions. Gripping, yes. Freedom, yes. Overwhelming. One of the things I would love to say as well regarding the overwhelming amount of information when it comes to money, you don't have to know everything to succeed. I always give the example of, like, if you've ever, and I probably need to use a better example than a refrigerator because people aren't buying refrigerators very often, but like, if you have to buy a refrigerator, do you go and find out every refrigerator that has ever been made? No, right? You look at maybe the top 30 and you narrow it down and you pick between it. Personal finance is the same. You don't need to know every stock, bond, mutual fund, so on and so forth in order to succeed. You will overwhelm yourself and then have like what's it called? Decision fatigue and like paralysis. So you just need to take small steps along the way and just be proud of yourself for every step rather than just getting decision fatigue and paralysis. Okay. Any questions? Any other questions or anything before I move on? Well, now we're going to get into the fun stuff. I guess it's all the fun stuff, but all right. Terminology and mindset. Budgeting versus conscious intentional spending. So I call it budgeting. There is sometimes a contraction or stigma around the world, especially when it comes to social media. I age myself. I don't know if people are still saying it, so I'm going to age myself, whatever. Like, the idea of like YOLO and, like budgeting being like not sexy. That, like, I really don't like that because budgeting actually, like the way that we're going to learn about budgeting, it's expansion. It's not contraction. When we've heard about it, we think of like tightening the belt, but actually we budget and we plan so that we can invest. And part of those buckets, we're going to invest, and investment is expansion energy. So budgeting is creating a plan for expansion. But if it still triggers or activates you, feel free to just call it conscious or intentional spending. And in the template, you can just take out the word budget and call it conscious intentional spending. These semantics can be very important in terms of how you see things. Next, so there's different ways of budgeting. I like to do what's called zero-based budgeting. It basically assigns a job to every dollar of your take-home pay. So if you make $10,000 a month, you're going to allocate $10,000. It doesn't mean you're spending $10,000. It means you're allocating $10,000 to saving, investing, and then your expenses. And then lastly, I said it at the beginning of the call, but money is connected to safety and security, from the people who know this, your root chakra, right? So it's important to make financial decisions when you feel calm and regulated. A lot of times people do, what's it called? Like impulse buying when they're stressed out. Those are usually the times that you want to just take a moment and think about things, or don't buy some crazy amount of stock because you just have a moment of like anxiety or something. You want to make these kinds of decisions from a safe, regulated space. Next up, so these are just entrepreneurship considerations. So I'm going to talk about one budget, but if you have your business, you generally want to create like a budget for your business and a budget for your personal spend, right? So like your business makes revenue and you then pay yourself, and the amount that you pay yourself is your own separate budget. But I'm just going to talk about one budget, but you could create two separate budgets based on that. The other thing I want to mention is, especially when you're in the first 2 to 5 years of your business, it's pretty common that your income may fluctuate from month to month. So there's different approaches you can do in estimating like what the monthly amount is. You can use an average for the year if you're a few years in, or if you're just starting out, you can have a conservative approach and maybe think that you're going to assume that you're going to make less than you do, and then save any amount so that you're evening it out. I just caution you to not think that you're going to make too little, because that can limit your like potential as well. You want to aim really big, but you want to be reasonable, and it's finding that sweet spot, which you find over time when you have a business. The next thing I want to talk about is reinvestment. So when you have your business, in terms of how much you're going to pay yourself versus how much you're going to reinvest in your business, it really does vary on where you are, the type of business you're in, and what stage in your business you are. But I would say earlier on, you're going to want to reinvest as much as you can. And then, you can start to reduce it to like 20 to 50%. You're going to find what works for you, but you want to be paying yourself, but you want to also reinvest in your business. Any questions so far? I see there was something in the chat. Okay, great. Thank you.
I can ask a question.
Yeah, what's up?
So, investment, this is something that I think is huge, especially for entrepreneurs. If you've ever worked with a coach of some sort, usually the term they'll use is invest. Like, do you want to invest in getting this type of help for you? And I've invested thousands of dollars in different coaches, different programs, and I don't know what they did to make me decide to invest thousands of dollars, but I feel like I wish I knew this stuff sooner, because it's like, what is that percentage that is a healthy amount? Because usually they'll sell things like, oh, this is a $6,000 package. And it's like, well, that's a huge risk, but of course you learn and grow and everything. But I feel like there's a wiser way to approach that when you're in the beginning stages or you aren't making consistent income yet. So what would you say is a good percentage in the beginning stages before you
I
hit?
mean, I hate to give the like economics answer of it depends, but it really does depend. I would be cautious to not invest. When I say reinvest in, there's a difference between reinvesting in your business versus reinvesting in yourself as a business owner. So something like coaching, very valuable, right? Because it allows you to expand. And I can't speak to, that's different type of coaches will offer different things, right? But there's a difference between like, let's say you have like an Airbnb business. When I talk about reinvesting, I mean buying new properties, right? But it could also mean, you know, focusing on what's it going to do to help you get into the space to be able to sell and have more revenue, right? So it's two different things. I would make sure that you're reinvesting in the business in terms of making more sales. So that in that Airbnb example is having more properties or marketing it more. Or it could also be working on your mindset and learning how to do sales with a coach. So it's all the different things. But at the beginning stages of your business, you're going to reinvest a lot of it until you've reached an established place where you have consistent cash flow. Does that help address your question?
I think that makes sense. I don't think it's black and white. It's definitely just understanding the difference, like you explained. I think that helped
Yeah.
a lot because it took me a long time to learn what's the difference between myself and my business because I am my business. It literally took
Okay.
me 4 years to understand they're two separate entities. They're not treated as the
Yeah.
same thing. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you could think about it in terms of like if you had a big company with hundreds of employees, you'd also be paying for development of your employees, right? So when I was, at my last job, I was an executive leader, so I had executive leadership training. So that was kind of like the coaching that you're talking about for yourself. So there is development, personnel development, and then there's also reinvesting capital into the business to get more sales or grow your business. Yeah.
that's really
Okay.
cool. Yeah, there's different ways of investing. That makes sense.
Exactly, exactly. And when we talk about investing here on the next slide, which we'll go to right now, in the budget buckets, when I'm talking about investing here, I'm talking about like stocks, bonds, index funds, things like that, right? So when you're talking about where there's reinvesting in your business, but then there's also investing for yourself for retirement or for your future. Okay.
Future. Yeah. There is a question that popped up in the chat in
Oh,
case you,
yes.
it says, is this different for sole proprietor and LLC slash S Corp?
No, it's reinvesting. It's all going to be same no matter what the type of, those are just like legal entity setups, which an attorney that I can't give an opinion on in terms of what is the best entity type for your type of business. Depending on the type of business you're running, you're going to need to select a different entity. A lot of people in the spaces of coaching and things like that are usually set up as an LLC, or sometimes S corps as well. That will be determined by an attorney that you work with, but there are different tax implications of being set up as an LLC C Corp and different tax deductions that will apply for each people, for each type of setup. But in terms of the concept of reinvesting, the concept is the same. But in terms of what types of things are deductible will vary. Does that help address the question? Okay. I'll take that as a yes since I didn't hear anything, but okay,
It was a
lovely.
big
Okay.
yes. She said yes. She said
Okay,
yes.
great, great, great. Okay, I can't see everyone on my screen. Thank you. Okay, so budget buckets. So when we look at budgeting, and this is our take home pay, right? So this is either for our business. Um, I'm excluding reinvesting in the business. I'm excluding taxes, right? Because whatever money I make from like my company, the taxes will be taken out, right? So this is your take home pay. It's very commonly called a 50-30-20 rule. I like to call it a 50-20-30 rule, and I'll get into that in a moment as to why. This is just a starting point. Give yourself grace if you are not able to save and invest when you first start in these amounts. This is where you would like to go and maybe exceed, right? So personal note for me, when I started making more and more money through my career, I'm much older than all of you here. I avoided a thing called lifestyle creep, which is adjusting your lifestyle to the amount of money you make. And I just invested a lot of the money. So my investing bucket is much larger than this. But this is a good framework that a lot of personal finance experts and books that you'll read, this is what is a nice way to start. Okay. So the idea is in this that 50% of your costs go to fixed costs. Fixed costs are things like your rent, car payment, utilities. Basically, if you did nothing and just existed, what would those costs be? That's your fixed costs. Your investment and savings, the summation of that is at 20%. So investments are going to be things like a 401k, solo 401k if you're an entrepreneur, Roth IRA, traditional IRA, brokerage accounts. This can also be things like real estate, crypto, but I don't talk about those. Those aren't the investments that I choose that have worked for me, but that is also something people can choose to invest in. The next bucket is savings. Savings are not going to generate as much money long term as investments. So really savings, you want to keep them in what's called a high yield savings account. And you really just want in there an emergency fund, which is 3 to 6 months of your expenses. Vacations, gifts, home down payment. Let's say you're getting married, anything that you're going to need in the short term. That's what you're going to want to keep in your savings. Because of things like inflation, which we all are very aware of now, I assume. If not, drop a note in the comment and I'll explain what that is. Because of inflation, we know that things get more expensive. So if we're getting a fixed interest rate that's lower than inflation, which it was the last, like since 2022, then we're basically losing money because the money that you put in your savings account is now gives you less purchasing power than gives you less purchasing power now as inflation goes up. Yes, Britt, what's up? Oh, you're on mute.
Quick question in the chat. It says, I find it overwhelming balancing and prioritizing between paying off debt, saving for retirement, saving for emergencies, investing. Could you speak to that?
Yes, that is a slightly longer conversation. I will, and who was that?
Ariella.
Okay, Ariella, we can talk about that separately because I know you personally, but I urge all of you after this to follow me on Instagram because I just created an account and I will share like the waterfall. There's an order to it. Things like credit card debt, I don't want to take up too much time. I'm going to spend 1 minute on it. Unless everybody's like, yes, please explain this. Things like credit card debt, credit cards, 20 to 30% APR. Like I would just love to ask everybody if anyone knows their credit card interest rate, drop it in the chat. And I will be so impressed if anyone does. Okay, but was that because I asked you to look into it? No.
No,
Okay, good, good,
I
good.
knew
Okay,
that.
good, good. Okay, great. People know. Okay. The reason I'm saying, wow, you guys, I'm so impressed. You know how many people I've worked with who don't know this? The reason is because a lot, and well, it's people who came to this. You're a self-selected group who wants to learn more about this. So it's intentionally kept from you. Like it's very hard to find on the websites and because they're charging so much. Like, why are we paying 27, 30%? What happens when you have a lot of credit card debt is you will just be paying interest in perpetuity. So bringing down your debt is very important because things like the stock market on average, like the S&P 500, last year it did 20 something percent, 22% plus 2% in dividends. It did 24% last year. But if you're paying 27% on your credit cards or 28%, you're losing money, right? However, so the general thing is pay off your high interest debt first. That's usually the rule. And then you go and you invest in your employer match 401k. Like there's an order to it. However, I will say that there is also something beautiful energetically about investing. So I personally like to pay off debt as you're also investing a little bit so that you gain comfort with the idea of investing and know that you're part of the population of people who are able to become rich. Britt, what's up? What's next? Is there another question?
I'm curious as to which bucket debt falls into. Would it be investments?
Yeah, so debt I haven't put here, but yeah, you could drop into savings. Yeah. But debt was like a other conversation which we can have at a different time. Maybe if you're interested, I through my like newsletter, I'm going to do like an investing webinar and I think I'm going to do a debt one as well. So maybe that's something that we can have a separate conversation on because it is a much bigger conversation, but I would say debt should go into this like savings bucket. You know, people will say high interest debt first. Like if you have student loan debt that's like 2 or 3%, no, just pay that off over time. Don't worry about paying that off quickly. But high interest credit cards, you want to pay off as soon as you can. But I also believe that at the same time, you should be investing a little bit because of the energetics of that. You know, you are part of the population who makes a ton of money. You need to know that. You can't just get stuck in the idea that you're just going to be paying off debt forever. Yeah. Okay. Then lastly, the discretionary spending category, which is all the fun stuff. Entertainment, dining out, clothing. What are your hobbies? Do you buy fancy, I don't know, sneakers? I'm a skier, so there's like right here, all our skis are here. So what are the things? The reason I love budgeting is because if you put it in your budget and you spend it, there is no guilt about it. There's no guilt and shame about loving shoes or loving skis or loving whatever it is. If you budgeted for it and you're saving and investing, good, that's great. And then you can take all of that narratives of things that you learned from your parents about just saving and being like really careful with money. You are being careful with money now. And like I said, this is 30% discretionary spending, but as you become more wealthy, that amount can come down and then you're investing a lot more and you could flip it. You could do 50, 20, 30, 50% fixed costs, 20% discretionary spending, 30% saving and investing. And actually, at some point, your savings, like for me, I already have my emergency fund. So I am just saving for annual vacations, gifts, and then I have to save for skiing because that takes up a lot of my costs during the year. So, yeah, that's that on the buckets. I would love to go through the template next, unless anyone has any more questions. Let me look in the chat. Debt one. Okay, great.
It looks like someone asked another
Yes.
question, but it looks like you're looking at it. Did you want me to read it?
Yes, yes, I would be. Oh wow, someone doesn't have a credit card. That's great. That's great. But there's also a benefit of building credit and paying off your credit card every month. I will say, but better to not have debt. But there's also a benefit from having credit in order to get things like a home loan or things like that in the future. Debt one. Okay, lovely. Thank you. Yes, Britt will be posting the replay. Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing while I pull up the template. How's everyone feeling so far? Like thumbs up if we're good. Okay, great, great. Okay, lovely, lovely. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to walk through once I have this up. Yes. Um, Yes, you can definitely use a tool. That's a net. That's a very popular one. So Mint used to be, I don't know if anyone's heard of Mint.com. Mint.com used to be the tool. Like it was fantastic, a fantastic way to track spending. And then I don't know if they got bought out or they went bankrupt, but they're no longer. And so now there are a lot of companies, but that is a good one that I've heard of. I like to do it in a spreadsheet, and I will be creating like a very robust dashboard just because of my preferences. But any sort of budgeting tool will be helpful. Just make sure like you're okay with any privacy things or just because a lot of times they'll have access to a lot of your different accounts. Just make sure that you read the fine print. Books. QuickBooks for your business. Okay, that's great for your business. For personal things, it might be helpful to use a spreadsheet or another tool like that one. And yes, I will be sharing this, or Britt will be sharing this template to everybody. And then there was one other question, book recommendations. I really love just because I really love psychology of money. I really love you know what? Let me share with Britt some of them. And then we can drop that in. So it's template and book recommendations that I'm gonna get. Okay. The other one that's really good, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. The reason I'm bringing that one up right now is because he goes through the order to whomever, I think it was Ariella that asked the order of like operations, though it's not like his proprietary thing. A lot of people have talked about that, but he spells out like exactly the order. And he talks about a lot of the similar things I talk about, like money narratives. So I personally like that book and I like Psychology of Money. There are a few others as well. Yeah. All right. So here is the template, which will be shared. This template has two tabs, which we'll go through. And at the top, when this is sent to you as a link, the way Google Drive works is you'll click on it and then you'll click Save a Copy or Make a Copy. That way, because otherwise my template, I don't want to give anyone editing rights to this because it's your private information. You'll save a copy and you can rename it to whatever you want. And you can make one for each month. You can make one for yourself and one for your business. Also up here, I put monthly budget, AKA conscious spending plan, again, for anyone who feels activated by the word budget. So the way that this works is you will create a budget and then you will then have transactions that you'll input to see how you've done against your budget. Budgeting is an iterative process, meaning even for me, who's been doing this for a very long time, anytime I've gotten a raise or promotion or had a life change, I will redo my budget. And sometimes I'll realize, oh, I underestimated this expense, or things have shifted in the world. So I then need to adjust it. So give yourself the space and grace. I say that a lot to not get it right the first time. You probably won't. And if you do, congratulations. If you don't, congratulations as well. It's a step-by-step process. I like to do it by looking back historically to see how much I've spent on things, but a lot of people are very intuitive and can just determine like, how much do I think I'm going to spend on groceries? And they can do it that way too. What I will tell you is that everybody has a very personal seasonality to their spend. Like I mentioned, I like skiing. So for me, December to March are my most expensive months, right? So if I'm doing a budget, I'm not necessarily going to look at, July and think that's how much I'm going to spend year round because I have some months that are more expensive. So for those kinds of things, I put aside the money into savings if there are peaks, right? So like if I have gifts for Christmas, for example, maybe let's say you spend $1,000 on gifts, which by the way is an average that people generally spend. Then you will put aside 1,000 divided by 12 every month for that. Okay. Okay. So any questions so far? Okay. Lovely. All right. So let's get into it. So down here is where you're going to put your planned expenses in column D, and then you're going to put your planned income in column J. I have created categories that like are very general, but you might have some more specific things. So there, I put an item here called new category, and you can just type in that new category. You can also insert cells by clicking and right clicking and clicking insert one row above and then hit OK. Don't worry about that. And then you can just create that new category. So you can add and adjust to it however you like. Just make sure you're doing it between the spaces. And the way that it works is, let's say I put in here, we'll just put in skiing because we talked about it, right? I put in that category in row 45. When I go to my transactions, there will be a drop down for that now. So anything that you add to the bottom of this section will be created as a new category when you go to logging your transactions. So I'm a very visual learner, so I'm just going to put a few numbers down so that we all have an understanding of how that works. So, and these numbers mean absolutely nothing, but we'll just assume incoming money of like $2,000 and outgoing money of $2,000. Okay, so let's say I planned in any given month that my paycheck would be 2,000. And then let's say, I wish this were the case, but let's say I plan for my rent to be 1,000. And let's say I plan for groceries to be 500 and utilities be 500. Again, I don't want to go through the whole thing in the interest of time, but we're just going to go through a few categories. So in this instance, we are planning income of 2,000 and we are planning expenses of $2,000. And that's why I want like the zero-based budgeting. It's like the same amount in, same amount out. I didn't put in investment and savings in the interest of just doing a few categories and not building this out fully, but you would want to include those and every other category as well. Then let's say at the end of the month, I can come in and drop in, okay, this was November. I'll update the date. Yes, Britt. Oh, you're on mute again.
My bad. So, people in the chat are wondering, how do you make this fun for yourself? I've heard different tips, like listening to feel-good music. I've been struggling with this for years, and I actually like math.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I think a lot of it comes with like the not fun of it comes with a lot of the like cultural stigma that we've heard about it. I like to do it once a week. I like to make it a fun activity like that, listen to music. And you can also have an accountability buddy. Like it's really, this is the thing, we need to talk about money more with people. So if you have a friend that you can do this with, I don't know, I think Alina's on this call. We were talking about this. I might actually like start going like live once a week when I start doing this, and then we can just all do it together. You know what I mean? Because it's more fun in community, and we realize like maybe we could like laugh about some of the things we did, like maybe we underestimated or overestimated something. So I think that we need to destigmatize money and realize that, you know, what's fun is looking in your bank account when you hit $1 million. You know, you know what's really cool? I'm in Los Angeles in the fires and like being able to help other people because I have money. You know, that's how I reframe it. Like maybe it's not like as fun as I don't know, going to like see a concert or something, but like it's really fun to be able to like be secure and have freedom and sovereignty and to be able to give back to people, to be a good steward of money, to be able to help the people around you and impact change. Whatever your passion or purpose is, that's what money does. So in the meantime, to make it fun, just do the thing of like having an accountability buddy, listening to music, whatever it is. Was that helpful?
That was so inspiring. She said yes. But I think I want to bold, highlight, underline what you just said because this is something I teach about too, is like connecting it back to your why. Like if you just
Yeah,
think about money, you're just thinking of those names that we had in the first journal prompt. If you just think about money,
exactly.
you're going to feel those feelings. But as soon
Mhm.
as you remember your why with your purpose, with your business, with what you're doing, that's what this action step helps you achieve that purpose.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's exactly why I had that last journal prompt of like, what are your financial goals? Because if you just focus on that and like just have tunnel vision towards your goals and not be so pulled into other people's perceptions and ideas and narratives around money, then you're gonna be good. You know, for me, what drives me is knowing I can impact change with my money, you know? Yeah, and this is my change, being able to teach people. As personal note, I was senior vice president of a big studio, global studio. I quit my job last year. I took a significant pay cut so I could start doing this. You know what I mean? And because I want to now be of service. So that is what money bought me. And whatever it is for you, focus on that and it'll really help you. And it's different for different. What if you need to take care of your parents? It's going to be a different thing for everybody. And like we can't judge other people for what their thing is, but find out what your thing is and go towards that. Yeah. Okay, sorry. I have 9 minutes left. Does anyone have a hard out? If so, I can. Oh, look, Ness here. Yes. Does anyone have a hard out, or can I go 5 minutes over?
You can go 5 minutes over, and this will be
Okay.
posted to the client club if people need to leave. I'm going to post it
Okay,
on.
great, great. I'm sorry. I'm usually very on time and respectful of time, but I think we got on some other topics. So apologies for that. But okay, let's go to expenses. So here I said that I would have 1,000 of rent. So let's say we put in 1,000 and we'll call it rent. You could put in the name of the your management company or whatever, and then you would put in home. We said we had 500 of groceries. Let's say in November, I had like 520 of groceries. Okay. And then you'll put like Whole Foods or whomever you shop from. I don't think I have a lot of people here from LA, so I won't make the Erewhon joke that I tend to make. And then the last thing was utilities. So let's say on 11/7, I paid for my electricity bill, which was 500. And then we have LADWP. So here. And then on the income side, my paycheck, let's just say what your company name is. You said I said 2,000, and then I'll drop that in as paycheck. I just want to show you how this flows to the front. So I recommend doing this weekly, but if monthly works as well. I just find that if you wait too long, it becomes overwhelming. And by doing it weekly, I can kind of see where I'm at for the month. And if we have 4 weeks-ish in a month, then if I've spent 30% in week one, maybe I need to chill on certain things, right? But also there's different ebbs and flow in the month, right? Some weeks you're going to spend more money. So then if I go to my summary schedule, you'll see here my income. Oh, whoopsie, I put the wrong thing. Company. My income was, I planned for it to be 2,000 and the actual was 2,000. On the expenses, I planned for 2,000. I was 2,020. So maybe that's a month where I learned, okay, what did I do? What did I do did I spend more this month? Can I cut it back next month? Or do I need to adjust my budget because this is actually how much I'm going to be spending? And maybe I need to like reduce spending in other categories. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. And then you'll see here that the starting balance, I start with a 0 because we do zero-based budgeting, and it shows your ending balance is -20. But in the example where we do it exactly, then we end up 0 in, 0 out, 2,000 money going out, planned versus actual, money in, 2,000 planned versus actual. Does anyone have any questions? I'm going to just jump into the chat. Yes, and if your actual income is more than your planned, then you can do a lot of things with it. You can invest it, or if you have a business, you can reinvest it. I love any kind of windfall I have. I like to invest it personally. Okay, great. We do have LA people. Yes, lovely. Okay. I always talk about Erewhon and how I overspend there, but I don't shop there primarily. It's just it's a treat for me because I'm more reasonable than that. Wait, that is all on this. I'm gonna go back to the slides. And then we will actually wrap up. I talked about some of the other things I have, like I think I'm going to have like a debt. I'll do a debt webinar. It seems like that's a thing that people are wanting. I'm also going to do like a free investing webinar. So I am available to you all. I urge you to follow me on Instagram because it doesn't even have to be me. I will say me, but like also follow other people who resonate with you. I might not be your person, You might find someone else who resonates with you more. But the thing is, you want to create a relationship to money. You want to be hearing about it a lot, and so that you gain comfort with it. But this is my Instagram if you choose to follow me. The reason I say to follow me is I just launched it 2 weeks ago. I will be sharing a lot of free resources. And again, it's exploring that intersection of this tangible, money management plus, psychology. I also have a monthly newsletter. If you want to be on my newsletter, email me. My email is here. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions in terms of like things that I offer. I will do these free webinars. If you want anything further than that or the free resources on my Instagram, I will be launching a course later this year that will walk you through week by week, dive in deeper more into mindset, those narratives, and we'll go through everything from like budgeting in much more detail than this, investing, long-term planning, debt optimization. And of course, if anyone wants to work with me even more one-on-one, you can also set up a discovery call with me. Because we're here, I'm offering to anyone who's here, whatever, if you do purchase anything, I'd like to give anyone who attended this 20% off. I don't have a code or anything because I don't have those things available yet, but they will all be coming this year. But you can just email me and mention that, and then we'll get that sorted. And then lastly, I would love, before questions, I would love for you all to just think of one thing that you learned today that you want to remember. And if you feel called, I'd love to see it in the chat.
We had a question in the chat that asked, how long is the discovery call and how detailed?
It's 30 minutes, and it's basically just enough time to get an understanding of what exactly you want to look at to see if like it's beneficial for us to work together in more detail, or if there are things that we can just go through in 30 minutes. Yay, budgeting isn't that scary. Investing, yes. This is great. So many different types of investing, but you don't have to know them all either, right? Conscious spending plan, yes, yes, this is great. Oh yes, the personal and business investing. Lovely, lovely. Thank you all. And are there any final questions or anything anyone needs? Because actually, I finished right on time. But
You're so
I guess
punctual.
question, yeah.
I'll stop sharing your screen so we can see each other before we hop off. I just want to thank everyone for being here. If you guys are not a part of the client club yet, it is my free community, which is how we hosted Lucy tonight. So I'll send that link in the email as well if you're not a part of it already, but I'll be posting the replay in there and was going to ask you after, Lucy, if I could have the link to your slides so we can share that as well as part of the resource section. But yeah, thank you everyone for showing up. Lucy, thank you for your time. I'm glad people here, it seems like they learned something. So I'm really glad that we could give this to you. And I will send the email with the book recommendations and then her template link and then the links to her Instagram and her email. So that will all come shortly after this.
Thank you so much. Thank you all again. I really appreciate, taking an hour of your time to do this. It means a lot. Like together, like we can make so much change by looking at these things for ourselves individually. Collectively, we heal so much as we heal our relationship to money and we expand, and then we can like pass that on to others. So thank you all. Have a good evening.
Absolutely.
Bye, everyone.